I knew something reeked the second my laptop screen flickered to life and our CEO, Garrett Lane, popped up smiling like a Botoxed weatherman forecasting layoffs instead of thunderstorms. Strategic realignment, he called it. Optimizing for efficiency. Corporate speak for we're cleaning house, and guess whose name just got bleached out of the org chart? I barely had time to process it before my calendar pinged with a 30-minute Zoom titled People Ops Transition Call at Eva Rosario. No details, no prep, just a digital trapdoor under my chair. When I clicked in, the HR director, Rachel, fake smiling like she'd just had a mimosa with my obituary, was already mid-script. Garrett waved briefly, muttered something about tough decisions, and vanished before I could unmute. Rachel launched into her bullet points like we were discussing printer ink instead of my livelihood. Eva, this isn't a reflection of your performance. Your contributions have been valued. Unfortunately, your position is being eliminated as part of a broader pre-merger alignment effort. I sat frozen, not angry, not crying, just stunned into that surreal HR purgatory where they pretend your body's still warm, but your career's already been cremated. Then came the final insult. We've included your severance terms in the separation packet, including continuation of benefits for 60 days, a standard non-disparagement clause, and a one-time equity conversion waiver. Waiver. That word hit like a dart to the base of my skull. They emailed the PDF while Rachel chirped through a list of next steps like she was handing out party favors. When I opened it, the first page was your standard legalese sludge, but halfway through, there it was in bold. Shareholder Conversion Waiver Form 4B. Familiar. Too familiar. The CFO, Marshall, called me less than 5 minutes after I dropped off the Zoom. His voice had the oily smoothness of someone trying to sound empathetic without actually being empathetic. Eva, I know this is hard, but just sign the waiver, all right? After the merger closes, your 49,000 restricted shares will convert and you'll cash out. It's not personal, it's just timing. Not personal. You don't spend 6 years building a company's internal governance framework just to get told it's not personal when they push you off the books 3 weeks before a $148 million merger. I stared at my reflection in the black screen, fingers hovering over the Sign Here tab. My heart wasn't racing. My jaw wasn't clenched. But something settled heavy in my chest, something deeper than betrayal. Something was off. Very off. Before I tell you what I found buried in that document and how one unsigned piece of paper nearly detonated a $148 million deal, please take a second to like the video and subscribe. Seriously, 97% of you listen without subscribing, and this is how we keep the stories coming. It really helps the team more than you think. Now, back to that waiver. See, most people don't read those things. Not really. They skim, they sign, they get their thanks for playing check, and disappear. But I don't skim. I wrote the original equity plan these waivers are based on. Back in 2020, when Garrett still called me the secret weapon and looped me in on every compliance restructure. Back when I still believed companies remembered who built the walls after the paint dried. So I printed it, every damn page, highlighted, annotated, cross-referenced it with the original advisory override clauses we filed with the board. Then I took out the old binder I wasn't supposed to have. The one I'd kept locked in a box labeled vacation receipts at the back of my hall closet. By midnight, I wasn't hurt anymore. I was intrigued. I sat at my sister's kitchen counter with a stack of paper no one thought I'd bother reading. My niece was making microwave popcorn for breakfast because apparently that's acceptable when you're 9 and adorable. And I was 3 hours into unraveling the biggest corporate sleight of hand I'd ever seen. Shareholder Conversion Waiver Form 4B looked innocent enough on the surface. Checkboxes, signature line, a few vanilla paragraphs about authorizing share liquidity conversion under merger conditions. But I knew that language. I helped write the original draft in 2020. Hell, the legal team nicknamed me Clause Queen for how deep I'd buried half the veto triggers. I turned the page. There it was again. Boilerplate masking something sharp. Pursuant to Article 7, all qualifying shareholders must provide explicit conversion consent to effectuate liquidity events. Consent withheld by any qualifying holder shall delay or nullify share class transition until resolved by mutual agreement. Qualifying holder. I whispered it like a code word. In the 2020 version, that term was intentionally rigid: uninterrupted tenure plus either advisory status or equity committee contribution. I'd had both, still did. Termination didn't erase past contributions. In fact, I designed it to prevent exactly this: executives gutting staff just before a buyout and steamrolling them into silence with promises of future upside. Garrett must have forgotten that detail. Or maybe Marshall thought I was just another cog they could toss and write off as compliance redundancy. The kind of woman who files the paperwork but never understands it. People always assume quiet means harmless. They confuse calm with compliant. I flipped back through the plan's appendix. Yep. Clause 14D. No conversion of shares into merger cash equivalents without 100% waiver consent from qualifying holders. And nowhere in the updated plan did it say that termination nullified your standing, which meant firing me didn't void my rights, it activated them. I closed the binder slowly and stared at the unsigned waiver. In any other timeline, I would have signed it without thinking. Trusted the company, trusted the process, trusted the same leadership I'd worked under for half a decade. But something about this felt engineered, like I'd been timed out, surgically removed right before I could get curious. They didn't just lay me off. They isolated me from the deal's closing mechanics, betting I wouldn't notice what they'd buried under 12 pages of standard exit procedure. I sealed the waiver back in its envelope, unsigned. No sticky note, no message, just the quietest no I've ever said in my life. Then I brewed a second pot of coffee and printed every board memo from Q4 of 2020. My sister walked in and raised an eyebrow. "You working?" I smiled without looking up. Not exactly. Garrett Lane stood before the board on Tuesday morning in his usual smug Armani armor, projecting the confidence of a man who thinks handshakes replace due diligence. "All consents are in motion," he said, gesturing toward the glossy slide on the screen behind him. One or two stragglers, but it's all a formality, were greenlit across the board. Final waivers by Friday, money in escrow by Monday. He even chuckled. The kind of chuckle that sounds like it belongs next to a country club drink order. No one pushed back, not then. But in a windowless room 2 floors down, legal was fidgeting. A junior associate flagged a discrepancy. "We're missing a Form 4B, she said quietly, scrolling through the digital checklist. Eva Rosario, tenure qualified, advisory designation on record. The managing counsel glanced at the name, shrugged. She was laid off, not a blocker. Just kick her a reminder email. Already did, no reply. He didn't look up. Give it 48 hours, she'll sign. They always think you'll sign, eventually. Just a matter of poking the right nerve, dangling the right carrot. Nobody clocks silence as a strategy. Meanwhile, 3 hours north, I was spreading papers across my sister's kitchen table like a forensic accountant in a murder documentary. Her boyfriend, Tim, wandered in to grab a beer and paused mid-reach. "You building a time machine or suing God?" "Just solving a logic problem," I said, eyes still on a redacted board memo from 2021. He whistled. "Remind me not to piss you off." The thing is, I wasn't angry. Not yet. Anger's loud, sloppy. This wasn't that. This was cleaner. Controlled, like watching a fuse burn and realizing you know exactly where the dynamite sits. I found the original draft of the equity charter with my annotations still on it. Sticky tabs marked the evolution of Clause 14, subpoints A through G. In version 5.2, which I personally walked through with the board in late 2020, subpoint D had been modified to include a line nobody had noticed since. Conversion shall be deemed invalid until receipt of all qualifying consents, regardless of employment status at time of conversion event. Regardless of employment status. That wasn't a loophole. That was a tripwire. At 5:34 p.m., I got an automated reminder from People Operations asking me to complete my exit packet. I ignored it. Instead, I took out a fresh legal pad and wrote one sentence at the top of the page. They built the house. I designed the lock. By Thursday, the acquirer had scheduled the closing for the following week. Their diligence team, lulled by Lane's PowerPoints and Marshall's honeyed reassurances, assumed all documents were inbound. Nobody likes to ask the obvious question when the money's already half counted. At dinner, my sister asked if I wanted to vent. I said no. This isn't venting. This is chess. My phone rang at 9:42 a.m. sharp, the name Robert K. Lister blinking across the screen like a courtroom summons. General Counsel. I let it ring twice before answering, keeping my voice neutral. Eva, he began, crisp and casual, like we were old colleagues catching up over bagels. Wanted to circle back on your exit docs. I understand there's still one item pending. He meant the waiver. I've seen the packet, I said. I'm still reviewing. A pause. The kind of pause that tells you someone just made a tight little smile on the other end. Well, it's standard housekeeping, just a procedural sign-off so we can clean up the cap table pre-close. You know how these deals move. Fast and fragile. Wouldn't want to miss the window. I flipped to page 6 of my own notes and traced the margin annotation with my pen. I'll let you know if I have questions. Another pause, this one longer, then a shift in tone, lower, friendly. Look, Eva, between us, it's not worth holding up a win like this. That stock you're sitting on, it'll triple if we close. Everyone walks away happy, no reason to complicate it. He said it like he was doing me a favor, like he forgot I'd written the rule book he was trying to con me out of. I appreciate the context, Robert, I replied, my voice even, but I think I'll sit tight for now. Are you expecting something? He asked, tone tightening. I smiled. Just clarity. Then I ended the call. Elsewhere, in a downtown high-rise where the floors actually whispered when you walked, a 25-year-old M&A analyst named Jonah Patel was squinting at the employee equity plan buried in Appendix C of the diligence packet. His job was to verify conversion mechanics, straightforward stuff, checkbox work. But Jonah was thorough. He read footnotes. That's how he found it. Clause 14D. All qualifying shareholders must consent in writing to effectuate merger-triggered conversion events. If not, the remaining shares must be redeemed individually at a negotiated valuation, or the buyer eats the liability. He frowned. It wasn't the clause itself that spooked him. It was the fact that one of the names flagged for missing waiver status, Eva Rosario, also appeared in the authorship metadata for the equity plan's original design. Internal notes called her the compliance point of contact for cap structure integrity. Jonah flagged the clause and elevated the finding to his director. That email bounced upward like a dropped scalpel in a surgical room. By noon, the subject line equity conversion consent, potential red flag, was pinned in 6 inboxes at the acquiring firm and another 8 in our legal team. A follow-up email from Garrett to Marshall read, "Is she trying to leverage this? Did you not scrub her advisory designation?" Marshall's reply came 4 minutes later. I thought we did. Back at my sister's house, I poured myself a cup of tea, opened my inbox, and scrolled through 3 new nudges from HR. Still unsigned. I tapped open the PDF one more time just to reread the clause. Not because I was unsure, but because I wanted to feel it. Wanted to feel the weight of a line no one noticed until it mattered. They thought I was delaying. But I wasn't dragging my feet. I was waiting for the pressure to show. It started as a joke in the diligence war room, one of those offhand comments you make before the silence settles in and someone realizes you just pulled the pin on a live grenade. Wait, Rosario? That name's on the authorship metadata. The voice came from Lexi Monroe, senior counsel for the acquirer, flipping through the digital archive while sipping a $9 iced latte and expecting nothing but rubber stamps. She zoomed in. There it was, document version 5.2 of the Internal Equity Governance Charter. Author, Eva Rosario. Time-stamped, digitally verified, with board ratification signatures logged beneath. She blinked twice, checked the roster, then turned to Jonah, the analyst who'd flagged the clause. Did we fire the architect of the share conversion policy? Jonah nodded slowly, face pale. Looks like it. The room went quiet, not oops quiet, blood drain quiet. The kind of silence where everyone in the room becomes acutely aware that their bonuses are now dangling from the edge of a legal technicality. No one had the foresight to double-check. By noon, Garrett Lane and CFO Marshall were behind closed doors in the corner office. The blinds were drawn. The air was glassy with tension. Marshall leaned in, fingers pressed to his temple. "We didn't just fire a mid-tier advisor," he said under his breath. "She wasn't some equity coordinator pushing papers." Garrett's jaw twitched. Then what the hell was she? Marshall swallowed. She was the internal equity architect. She sat on the compliance drafting committee. That advisory override clause in the 2020 revision, clause 14D, she wrote it, and she still qualifies. Garrett blinked. She has veto authority, functional veto. Without her waiver, the shares don't legally convert under the structure we pitched. That clause was ratified. It's real. Garrett stood slowly, knuckles white. Why wasn't this caught in audit? Because you told legal to clean the cap table, and I assumed... He stopped. I assumed we removed all advisory designates. I didn't realize her tenure status locked that clause in, and no one double-checked her severance packet before HR sent it. Garrett stared out the window, watching nothing. Across town, the acquirer's managing partner called in a red flag to their board. Their general counsel issued a formal query to our legal department. Please confirm status of all outstanding consents, particularly those under qualifying designation. An emergency meeting was scheduled for 8:00 a.m. the next day. Slides were quietly being rewritten. Backup plans surfaced from dusty folders titled Scenario Partial Consent Failure. The vibe shifted from champagne pre-close to damage control drill mode. Meanwhile, I was sitting in my sister's sunroom with a glass of water, reading a paperback I hadn't touched in years. My phone buzzed once. A voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. I didn't listen, because I knew what it said. They'd finally figured it out. The waiver they dismissed as a formality wasn't a formality. It was the deadbolt. And I was the key they'd tossed out, without realizing I still had the only hand that could open the door. The first olive branch came in a sleek little HR email dressed up like a holiday coupon. Subject line, revised transition offer, time sensitive. Inside was the same sterile tone they always use when they're trying to bury a mistake under a fake smile. They'd re-evaluated my severance package and were offering a supplemental $75,000 signing bonus contingent on full packet execution, including, of course, the waiver. I didn't even open the attachment. Instead, I replied with a single sentence. All questions regarding my equity status should be directed to legal. That was Thursday morning. By Thursday afternoon, Garrett was on call with the acquirer's general counsel, trying to explain away what was now being termed a minor administrative snag. But no one was buying it, because it wasn't minor, and it wasn't administrative. It was contractual, foundational. The acquirer's board sent over a formal reminder. The offer expires in 5 business days. All waivers must be complete and fully executed, or the buyer walks. They don't do partial conversions. They don't want unresolved equity liabilities lingering in their books. Translation: without me, they don't close. At this point, I could feel it in the air, the difference in their tone. This wasn't pressure anymore. It was panic dressed up as professionalism. I was no longer the employee they forgot to thank. I was the single thread keeping the whole acquisition tapestry from unraveling. Friday morning, I got the next signal, a LinkedIn message, not from HR, not from Garrett, from the assistant of our founder, Leonard Kincaid, the man who used to handwrite thank you notes to every advisory member during the company's first 5 years, the man who vanished from day-to-day operations the moment private equity took over but still held ceremonial sway as chair emeritus. Her message read, "Hi, Eva. Leonard was hoping you might be open to a friendly chat. No pressure, of course. He always appreciated your clarity and insights. Would you be open to a brief meeting sometime early next week? Totally at your convenience. Best, Joelle." I let the message sit for a few hours, then I reread it while sipping coffee in my sister's backyard, watching the leaves scatter like a slow-motion fire drill. It was a signal flare. When they send the founder's assistant, it means 2 things. 1, they're scared, and 2, they don't trust anyone else not to screw it up further. Leonard hadn't been in a room with Garrett in 18 months, and now he wanted to talk to me? That wasn't a chat. That was a last resort. And I wasn't offended. I was ready. I went inside, printed 1 clean copy of the unsigned waiver, and slid it into a fresh manila folder. Then I opened a new notebook and titled the first page, Terms of Re-Entry. Not revenge, just resolution, on my terms. They booked the conference room like it was just another ops sync, like the woman they fired 2 weeks ago hadn't come back with a loaded pen and a kill switch in her bag. I showed up 5 minutes early, calm, carrying nothing but a manila envelope, my leather-bound notebook, and a black pen I'd bought from a gas station that morning just for the symbolism. Cheap, disposable, permanent. Joelle met me in the lobby, all polite tension and tight smiles. "Thank you so much for coming, Eva. Leonard really appreciates it." "Does he know he's not here?" I asked. She didn't answer, just held the elevator. Upstairs, the room was colder than I remembered. Probably because Garrett was already inside, suit perfect, face stretched into that strained salesman smirk he thinks passes for charm. Marshall, the CFO, stood near the window looking like he'd aged 5 years since our last meeting. Two lawyers sat to the side, quiet, observing. Eva, Garrett said, rising as if we were old friends. We're grateful you made time. I nodded, didn't sit, just placed the envelope on the table and waited. We understand there's been some miscommunication, he continued. This whole process has moved fast, and in hindsight, perhaps your departure wasn't handled with the level of appreciation it should have been. That's on us. I finally sat. He kept going. We wanted to talk through some of the paperwork, specifically the Form 4B. There's been confusion around timing, and we know how these waiver forms can feel dense. If there's anything we can do to make the process smoother, we're happy to— No, he blinked. I'm sorry? I don't need clarification, I said. I need you to stop pretending this is about misunderstanding. Garrett's charm cracked. He leaned forward. Eva, look, the deal's almost done. This is a life-changing opportunity for everyone involved, including you. You've got 49,000 shares. Sign the waiver and everyone wins. You fired me, I said flatly. Marshall finally turned. We understand the optics there were less than ideal, but that doesn't change the fundamentals. This merger lifts all boats. The acquirers already drafted the conversion schedule, which can't execute without full waiver consent from qualifying holders. Garrett scoffed. You think you're going to tank a $148 million acquisition over a technicality? No, I said. You already did. I'm just the one holding the receipt. Marshall moved to the head of the table, voice lower now. Eva, do you have veto power? I didn't answer. I just pulled the waiver out of the envelope, crisp and untouched, and slid it across the table, unsigned. The silence felt like stepping into a vacuum. No hum, no tapping, just heat under pressure. Then I said, without raising my voice, I did the math. $148 million doesn't clear if one conversion fails. Ask your lawyers. The two attorneys exchanged a look neither Garrett nor Marshall caught. But I saw it. The kind of look that says, she's not bluffing, and we can't fix this without bleeding. Garrett opened his mouth again, but I stood before he could speak. One more thing, I said, tucking my notebook under my arm. Stop sending HR to do your damage control. Next time you want to move a queen, check the board first. Then I walked out, left the unsigned form sitting there like a lit fuse. I didn't slam the door. I didn't need to. The deadline broke before the ink did. At 8:17 a.m. the following morning, the acquirer's board issued a formal request for a 48-hour extension on the closing window, citing equity compliance discrepancies. Internally, they didn't mince words. Either the target company resolved the waiver impasse fully and legally, or the acquisition was dead on arrival. There would be no partial conversion, no workaround, no executive privilege patching the hole. Every clause had to be honored, especially Clause 14D. Garrett didn't speak publicly after that. Not in emails, not in meetings, not even in damage control calls with investors. He vanished into the plush, soundproof corners of his own boardroom like a CEO-shaped ghost, one who'd finally been told he didn't own the damn house, just rented it from people like me. By 1:32 p.m., I received an official proposal, not a request, not a negotiation, a proposal, drafted by real lawyers with real teeth. The header read, Terms of Reinstatement, Rosario Eva. Beneath it, a concise outline in bullet points. Title, Governance Advisor, effective retroactively to original termination date. Compensation, 1.2 consulting fee, disbursed over 12 months. Equity, immediate vesting of all restricted shares with acceleration on final payout upon merger close. Governance, 3-year guaranteed board observer status with access to compliance committee minutes, legal, no NDA, no non-disparagement clause, no silencing. At the bottom, it simply said, Signature affirms reinstatement in full and clears waiver Form 4B for execution. There was no smiley face emoji, no, we appreciate your flexibility. Just paperwork that finally spoke my language. Leverage, honored. The next day, we met over video, not in some grand boardroom showdown, just a compressed little Zoom box with 5 executives and 1 lawyer apiece. I wore a sweater, said nothing unnecessary. The acquirer's GC asked if I had any questions. No, I said. I'm satisfied. Then they asked if Garrett had anything to add. He didn't. His jaw was locked, and his eyes never met mine. Marshall handled the signature. Silent, efficient, almost reverent in how deliberately he clicked the digital pen icon and applied it to the bottom line. No speeches, no fake apologies, just the subtle twitch of power shifting back to the woman they tried to erase. When it was done, I logged off. I didn't lean back and laugh, didn't pop champagne or text anyone with a told you so. I just opened the final copy of the reinstatement packet, bookmarked the equity line, and filed it under a folder I named Correction. They thought they could edit me out of the story. All I did was reappear in red ink. The closing room was colder than it needed to be, the kind of sterile corporate chill that comes from too much glass and not enough truth. 12 people in tailored suits, 2 legal observers, 1 ceremonial notary who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Everyone was staring at the same stack of papers. The only thing warmer in the room was the tension. All the waivers were signed, every conversion consented, every I dotted, T crossed, equity chart finalized, except mine. They'd left it for last, not because it was dramatic, no one dared admit that, but because everyone now understood what it symbolized. The final piece, the clause they'd overlooked, the silence that wrecked their timeline, the ghost in their machine. I stood at the far end of the table, the same manila envelope tucked neatly beside me, unopened since the last time I laid it down. I'd brought my own pen again, black, unbranded, permanent. No one said a word as I pulled out the waiver and flipped to the signature page. Garrett wasn't in the room. Whether they told him to stay away or he stayed gone on his own, I didn't care. Marshall was, though, gray-faced, still pretending to read something on his screen. The acquirer's general counsel sat straight, hands folded, not blinking. Then the acquiring CEO, a quiet man named Devrin Singh with the gaze of someone who missed nothing, finally spoke. "Miss Rosario," he said, calm and direct, "glad you're with us. That clause was elegant." I looked up at him, nodded once. It was necessary. Then I signed. My pen didn't hesitate. It was the cleanest signature I'd ever made. I let the ink settle, slid the paper back across the table, and stood. There were no claps, no speeches, just a rustle of fabric as people adjusted in their seats, trying to process the fact that the deal was now real, and that one woman had held it all in her hands, quietly, for weeks. I turned to leave. At the door, I paused only once, just long enough to say, mostly to myself, "Funny thing about worthless shares, they get very expensive when you're the only one not selling." Then I walked out, and for once, no one followed.